US for 7 years, and my background, I'm a math guy, so I did math in France, studied math at a high level for a couple of years, and then moved to the US 7 years ago and started my first tech company then. And so since then, I've been building tech companies in the Web3 space, more specifically.
Web3 space. So can you explain Web3 for people who don't really have the general understanding? Dumb it down for someone like me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Web3 is the third iteration of the internet. So the first internet was, like those old websites in the 90s where you could read stuff, not really interactive. Web 2 is the internet of social media, of blog, where people can write and interact and actually post content on the internet. And Web 3 is the internet of ownership. So it's the internet where people can own stuff. So it started with Bitcoin, it started with crypto, and now it's been more than 10 years, and we see more and more use cases and applications built on Web 3 where people can actually own pieces of their digital identity, pieces of digital content, that kind of stuff, through those technologies.
And so as a math guy, and so you came to the US to start or to study, I guess, a bit more of this, and you said you built your first company. Can you walk us through how that happened and how that worked out for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really not super related to math, to be honest. I was lucky because studying math in France, I was confronted to a lot of new technologies.
Yeah.
And so I remember back in 2015, something like that, one of my computer science teacher was talking about the blockchain. And back in the day, it was super young and there was not a lot of, it was really a nerdy stuff that not a lot of people were into. So I got intrigued by that back in France and started working on small projects with my friend, but super small scale. And when I arrived in the US in 2017, so I was supposed to do a master's in Colombia, which I did, but I was supposed to do it seriously and, after a couple of weeks, I realized that I had more time than I thought, and so I started working or exploring more and more this world. And back in 2017, it was very, very young, and it was the Wild West. I mean, the people that were in crypto in 2017, some people that I know, they're in jail. It's crazy,
Yeah.
And so I met my first business partner then, and the opportunity was there, and I think I was ready to start something. In hindsight, I was still young, and we did a lot of mistakes along the way, but that's part of the game. And so that's just how we started doing that with my business partner, and we started building those businesses, and ever since then it's been that.
I really like what you said about coming from France, your high-level studies, math, and coming here for a master's and finding yourself with time on your hand. So do you feel there's an approach to the American school system that's more conclusive to getting people with free time, talented together, etc., that kind of leads into these projects versus the French school system that is sometimes a lot more 9 to 5 and rigid?
I think it's very different. I mean, it's different approach. The French school system I went through, which is super high level of math, it's very theoretical. You go through the theories, it's there's no practical element there. It's true or false. Either you have learned something that is true, you make a demonstration that is true, or it's false by scientific standards. So it's much more, I will say, accurate scientifically, or rather it's more focused on the scientific accuracy.
Yeah.
And it leads to great researchers, great scientifics, but it requires more work because you gotta apply yourself and apply your time to being a good reasoner and a good scientific in general. And in the US, the approach, you have more choice. You can do that, of course you can do that, and you have some of the best scientifics and the best teachers and professors in the world that are in US universities. But if you want to have a more practical approach to what you learn, whether it's through a personal project or through things that you do in group class, or even the things that you learn, you can totally do that. And to me, I had to take classes in Colombia just to get my visa and to stay in the US, And so I had this class of deep machine learning, and right after I had a class of negotiation, completely different topics. But that's to tell you the power of the US system is that it's really piecemeal and you can learn whatever you want. And so it puts more independence on the student, I think.
Yeah, and there's something that always struck me as super interesting here in the US, but it's the freedom to do kind of whatever you want and the freedom to explore. So super interesting. Do you think you could have had started what you started here in France, for example, or is it something that's really conclusive to the market and the mindset that was here?
I don't think I would have been able to. I mean, for a few different reasons. One is personal. You know, when you stay in France, like me, I grew up in Paris, so staying in France, you kind of you're around people that do great things, but it's, you know, it stays in a certain perimeter, so it's more difficult to get out of that zone and try to do something else. But me leaving and coming to this place and meeting more people that had more extravagant backgrounds and you know, that were doing things a bit more different, obviously that inspires you, you know, and you're like, okay, cool, I can do that, you know. Like I see people like building companies, like I'm not dumber than them, so I can probably do that. And so I think like from a personal perspective that helped a lot. And there's also, it's true, like a perception, like in France is a great country, but it's not a, you know, the country for entrepreneurs is the United States, like
Absolutely.
100%, you know. And so I remember like my first company, I was 23 years old when we were starting that, and it was a Bitcoin exchange, so a platform where people were buying and selling Bitcoin, and we were trying to talk to big financial institutions to go on our platform, which was kind of crazy when you think about it. And so 23 years old, like I went to all the big banks in France, I went to all the big banks in the US, and in France, they're like, you know, they look at you like, okay, cool, that's interesting, go back and come back in 10 years. In the US, actually, like they were like, okay, cool, like interesting, let's do a few more meetings. You know, like they don't take you for face value.
Yeah.
It's more like, okay, is there business to be done? And if there's business to be done, let's kind of like explore more. So I like that culture.
That's fantastic. And so from the Bitcoin exchange, what drove you to the NFT market? Was it something from your past experience in that kind of blockchain building, or was it to tie back to the art? I'll let you explain.
Yeah.
I won't give too many
No,
answers for
totally.
you.
Yeah. So my first company was very much like very financial, very crypto, like again, like a marketplace where people could buy and sell Bitcoin. And I loved the experience of building that, you know, like it was super interesting, super exciting. And we sold it during like I believe it was October 2020, so deep in the middle of COVID. And it was a great sale, and you know, everybody was super happy. And so I got to take a bit of, not time off, but a time, you know, kind of chiller time to think a bit more about what I wanted to do. And lucky for me, the exit was very good and the market was very good, so I didn't have the constraint of having to have a job or, you know. So I was like, okay, what do I want to build? And what do I want to do? And I really wanted to work with artists. Like that was my thing. I didn't know why. And at the time, like I was like a crypto nerd working, you know, like in the Bitcoin exchange and coming from math school. So like really no connection. I mean, I had a couple of artist friends, but not so many, you know. And so I was like, okay, I want to work with artists. Here's what I know. I know how to build a company in Web3. I know that this can help this and this can help this. So I started like thinking about projects, and NFTs were blowing up, and there was a lot of artists interested about NFTs. So, you know, it's a mix of like what I wanted to do, what I knew how to do, how the market was behaving, and that all led to like building P00ls, which is the company I'm doing now.
So where do you see this opportunity for P00ls to grow? First of all, I have a random question, but I'm looking at the logo behind you. Is there any inspiration with La Piscine, Les Bains in Paris in the name?
No, not at all. No, it was. I don't like, you know, like finding a name for a company is always like it's a funny exercise.
Yes.
It's always like, you know, kind of particular. And when I thought about P00ls, like first it means a couple of different things, you know, like the concept of P00ls of liquidity, water, it's like
data.
Yeah, like data, like P00ls, like pooling together resources, liquidity pool, like, you know, it just means a ton of things. And I like the idea of having both like the math world and the art world, or the math world and the literary world in the same name. So that's why P00ls is written with 2 zeros and not with 2 O's. So yeah, that's
That's a little wink to the math man in you.
Exactly.
So tell me about the origins of P00ls.
Yeah.
Like, how did that seeding round, how did that come together, and who did you partner up with it? Because being the mask guy, do you have a creative input with a partner from that point of view? And tell us more.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it started like probably like 6 months after I sold the company. I was like, okay, I was exploring different concepts, and I was like literally exploring like 4 or 5 different concepts at the time, just to see like what was sticking, what was exciting, and what was, what could take off. And I remember I was in LA actually at my friend Renaudin, who works in the creator economy, and so he was telling me about like how creators monetize their influence and monetize, just how it happens online. Yeah. And I was fascinated by this idea that you can be a super influential artist or a super influential creator in general, like have like a big online influence, but this influence is not necessarily monetized the way it should be for artists, but also for fans. Like the value of like, oh yeah, I was there first, or I was at the first concert, or I bought the first piece of that artist. You don't really see it, and it's not all about monetization. But the way I think about it is like, an entrepreneur builds a company, there's a first investor. If the company does well,
it's the homage to the first believers. Exactly. And giving back to the people who were part of the first supporters of the.
Exactly, and so there was this sentence that is actually our motto at P00ls, which is not from me, which is from Kanye West, a controversial person, but a genius, in many aspects. He said, like, I was listening to one of his podcasts, and he said, money is not the only currency. And there's a currency in relationship, there's a currency in influence, there's a currency in art, in all those non-tangible stream of value. And I was, the genesis of that idea for P00ls is to create a currency for what is not money, to create a currency that values like all those intangible relationship between an artist and their community. So that was the idea, and it was not just like an idea that I had like this. I really believed in it. Yeah. And I would, before we had anything, like not even a white paper or anything, like I was like deeply, visualizing the success of that idea and seeing how it could happen and all. So I started off with like a high degree of conviction, like supernatural degree of conviction. And so I was working on a project at the time on another company in the decentralized finance space that we did with my co-founders from the first company. And I call them, I tell them like, look, I think we have a better opportunity here. This is the space, this is the product. We have a couple of competitors, so let's just build a deck and try to go to market as fast as possible. So they were all in, and that was great. So worked with the same team that I built the first company with, and just started like, taking the phone and speaking to like people that I was close to, people, friends of friends. And very closely, we got together like 40 pre-seed investors, angel investors that really believed in the project when there was literally nothing. Like the company was not created.
It was an idea.
It was an idea. It was a deck, and that's it. And so they put a bit of money, 2.5 million, to kind of seed the company. And we started very quickly to recruit people like with a very high degree of ambition. A couple of months later, we were getting close to launch of the product. So it was like October 2021. And I got super lucky. One of my, angel investors was working at a fund at the time, and he's like, you should talk to my boss. Talk to the boss. 20 minutes in, the guy calls me and it's like, yeah, I want to put $10 million in the company. I'm like, okay, cool. So, it just started the second round of fundraising. We raised a lot of money. We raised $18 million like in total before the launch,
before taking the product to market.
Yeah, which is good, but which is also
scary, but it shows a commitment of the market to the product you're trying to develop.
Yeah, and there was a lot of FOMO too, like to be very, like as much as I would like to say that people want to put $18 million on my ideas, like there was a lot of FOMO. We were very lucky with the timing, and the market was looking for like that kind of, idea and pitch. So we started with a lot of money, with a lot of hype. We launched the product in December, so a month or two later. And that was the beginning of P00ls.
How long have you been open for as of now?
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years.
In like 4 days.
In like 4 days. See, we get to capture them always at pivotal moments.
Yeah, exactly.
First 3 years. If you had to do a recap of your first 3 years, the two biggest high, the biggest low.
Well, the biggest high was to launch, I think to launch the company, December 2021, like the first token that we did with Blondish.
Ish token is making energy a currency.
Who was amazing. Like Blondish is an amazing person, amazing DJ, amazing artist, but she really believed in the idea of having a token from the very beginning. Actually, like I kind of had the idea thanks to her, because I was in Miami at the time, and I knew she was into Web3, so I was like DM'd her, cold DM'd her. It's like, come to my gig, went to the gig, we talked, and then we got a coffee, and she was like, yeah, I would love to do a token. I'm like, okay, cool, that's interesting. So like it was like just like a nice little story, and we launched 1st of December 2021 during Miami Art Basel. Did my first Instagram live, and Viv, like Blondish was late 10 minutes, so I was on Instagram live, like speaking alone for like 10 minutes. I mean, it was just like a fun moment and just like a good celebration
You'll
of the work.
remember this one for a long time.
Yeah. No, that was like a great moment. The second biggest high is when we launched the second version of the platform in December. So as you know, the crypto market goes up and down. Like that's the rule of the game, right? And you always think when it's a bear market, when the market is down, you've seen it, but you haven't seen it. It always like gets harder and harder, like in ways that you don't imagine. And so when we launched in December, the second version of the product, like we were really like kind of like at the bottom of the market. We had 30 artists on the platform. We didn't really know where the product was taking us. And now, we have 500 artists on the platform, clarity on the product. People love what we do, so it's just great to kind of see like the team that is very different from the early team getting together and kind of
problem solving the new packages you need to offer for like your services.
Exactly. Yeah, and like sticking together as well. Like that's the beautiful thing is like when you have a team that sticks together and finds a solution, it's amazing. For the lows, like I mean, it's always difficult, but I think the one thing that I don't have like two lows in particular, but one thing that I've noticed in, especially like in 2023, how people say like when you're an entrepreneur, your identity is the identity of your company. Yeah. So if your company does well, you're personally a genius, and if your company or the market doesn't do well, you're just like a failure, And that I never really realized it until the past year, where obviously pools had a lot of hype at the beginning, and a lot of people in New York knew about pools, and and that was great. But the market went down. Nobody wanted to hear about NFTs, and obviously we didn't go as fast as we wanted. And just seeing like the
lose of interest.
Yeah, the lose of interest, but like the lose of faith of like just like this idea that because your company, like I would speak to someone and they were like, oh, how are you? I'm like, yeah, I'm great. Yeah, you're good. Like, how is pools? Pools, yeah, like it's challenging, but so that was like a bit of that's part of the hard parts of being an entrepreneur, but there's no big lows, I think.
Do you think that your industry as a whole was also like kind of prone to be targeted by these because it was all over the news for such a long time? We could only hear about NFTs, and it, like anything you plaster on the news, it creates the pros and cons automatically here. Which is like both potentially a blessing and a curse for you guys, but
it's the way of the industry. It goes with booms and busts. Both are violent in their own ways, and when it goes high too much, you have like a lot of cheats and bad actors and things like that. So yeah, that's part of the game.
And in terms of busts, do you guys feel you have a contingency? Are you ready for bad markets?
We have, we have our ideas. We have some cash left, obviously, from the fundraise. So, we're ready. I mean, that's part of the risk. You build a company, you cannot have like a big mattress that, that ends like forever. I think for what it's worth, like for a tech startup where we're trying to do something that doesn't exist, it's like you kind of have to go fast and be very extreme in terms of applying your ideas, because you want to be, if you're wrong, you want to be wrong super fast.
Quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And so like when it's a tough market, it's actually the best way to kind of uncover the flaws of your product or the flaws of your approach and to build a better product. Because like when the market is crazy, everybody wants to work with you because they want to be in crypto, they want to make money. So it's kind of like you're kind of winning the beauty contest, but you know, do people actually love you? I don't know about that. So that's kind of the idea. So I like those hard markets. They are hard, but like they help you find the truth, which is what you want, I think, when you're building a startup.
How do you see this growing in the future? Like, is there avenues to maybe even take pool out of the digital space down the line with the artist collaborations, or what do you think, what are you planning for Web 4.0?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, you know, like, obviously I have like big dreams about what pools can become. Right now we're very focused on one area, which is the Web3 digital art area, which is a subculture that has existed for like decades, but which is really booming right now. And it's like, I discovered it thanks to Pool, and it's fascinating to see like all those digital artists doing so many things and really pushing the boundaries of art and creativity. And we want to serve them, and we want to serve them well. So that's really focus number one for the next, you know, at least couple of months, if not a couple of years. I mean, you know, like the way I see what we're trying to build is equity for creatives. So I have a startup, so I'm an entrepreneur. I have equity. I have a C corp in Delaware, and I can give shares to my employees, to my investors, and if the company does well, we all do well together. So what is that equivalent for
an artist?
Exactly. And so that's what I want to build. And so that transcends the idea of like being on the blockchain, digital, whatever. Like that's what we want to build ultimately, the equity for artists. So that's the vision, and we try to go there slowly but surely.
Do you feel as someone who's giving a platform, and someone who's more on the technical side of things, now as a provider of a platform, do you think this has influenced your vision of creativity and your creativity as a whole?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, like I think being an entrepreneur is a creative job in general, because you have to find solutions to problems that are not like straightforward. So that's always spurred my creativity in a certain way. Yeah, and of course, like I'm inspired by the people that I work with. So the artists that we work with, it's always a great inspiration. You know, like we started something with friends, like on the side, like we DJ. You know, like and we're two friends and we DJ together. And you know, you got to know your place. Like I'm a tech entrepreneur. I'm not like an international DJ, but it's fun. I like to go out. I like to have a community around me. I like to please people and make them have a good time. And so that's what we try to do. And that's been a way for me to work on that. I like to play the guitar. I think it's important to have a balance, you know, in the way you use your brain and the way you use your time, between like super Cartesian, concrete stuff, and also like leave some space for your brain to be more creative and do things that are not planned.
And so talking about the creatives, is there a creative in particular, apart from Blondish, obviously, that when you got really excited about?
There's a few, of course. I mean, and they became friends since then. I mean, Carlita.
Oh, amazing.
Became a dear friend, and it's been amazing because she was already like obviously well known as Carlita the DJ, but she's really, you know, blown up in the past 2 years and 3 years, and it's been amazing to be able to accompany her growth as a friend and as, you know, as a part of her ecosystem with what we've done with Pools. Someone else that I'm super friends with is Hugo, amazing image maker, amazing fashion photographer, incredibly creative spirit. And so, you know, like I love to give those examples because we started as a work relationship, and now we're friends, and you know, we talk about all the things and we try to build things together. So for me, that's been very fulfilling. I mean, another one that's been fun. We have a token with Renaudin.
Oh.
And me, I was like, when I was like growing up in Paris, like I was a fan of Ronaldinho. It's probably the first jersey that I bought was
I had the jersey.
Yeah,
as
the
well.
Barca
As a
jersey.
French kid, we all had the jersey.
Yeah, it's like crazy, you know. And so I got to meet him, and like he did like the pool token. Like that's just crazy, you know.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
For any young person looking to get into the blockchain universe as a whole, would you have like 2 key sentences of advice to share with them?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is to talk to as many people as possible and don't be shy. Like that's what I did. That's why I was able to meet my first business partner, and just going to events and talking to people. And when you're young, you're shy or not, like it's tough to go to like grown-ups or like people that look, like especially if you come out of school. So just do that a lot and often. And the second thing is just to, it's going to sound super cheesy, but just believe in yourself and the fact that you can do it. The biggest blocker that most people have is that, I'll do it later, or I'll do it when I have more experience, or no, just do it, and it's going to be wrong at the beginning and it's going to be better at the end. But yeah, just doing it and diving into it, that's the best advice I can give.
Amazing. And one word of warning?
One word of warning. Yeah. So, there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows. When it's low, don't lose faith. When it's high, don't think you're a genius. You got to stay level-headed all the way.
All the way.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you, man.